Welcome to the Genealogy Gems Podcast, providing quick and innovative ways to make the absolute most out of your research time and creative ideas for sharing and displaying your family history. I'm your host, Louise Cooke. Hello and welcome to Genealogy Gems Podcast episode number 126. It has been a whirlwind couple of weeks, and I think I'm finally catching my breath now before I head back to London to speak at Who Do You Think You Are Live. But as you probably have heard by now, the folks at Family Search pulled off another amazing RootsTech conference, and I was right there in the thick of things. My daughter Vienna came with me, and she ran our booth in the expo hall. And I started off the long weekend by teaching Google Earth for genealogy as a hands-on workshop, which I haven't done before. But I really enjoyed seeing everyone work right along with me. That was really cool. We were at the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City. Of course, it's a gorgeous, mammoth venue, and the workshop was in a room full of rows of brand new computers. Unfortunately, there were only about 75 seats. And there were many more people waiting by the door to see if a spot opened. I hope we get another opportunity to offer that class next year. I think I would love to see it in a much larger room where folks who have their own laptops, could sit in rows of chairs in the back of the room so that we could have the workstations in the front and we could have additional seating and places for folks who could work on their own in the back. But we did our very best to accommodate everybody, and I think everybody had a really smashing time. They were zooming all over the globe. And then on Saturday morning, right after the Ancestry panel keynote address, I took the main stage and I presented Genealogy Podcasts and Blogs 101 to an audience that was there in person. And I know that many of you were watching it online because it was streamed live on the RootsTech website. It was so cool knowing that so many of you from around the world were watching. But if you didn't get a chance to tune in, don't worry about it, because you can watch the video version of that presentation, as well as many others held throughout that weekend at the rootstech.org website. And then, at noon on Saturday, I presented 3 cool tech tools for finding your family history in newspapers. And that was so much fun that we immediately sold out of my new book, which is great. But we took lots of orders. And I want to let those of you who ordered the book after we sold out know that we have indeed shipped all the books. They are on their way to you. RootsTech was the public debut of the new book. Of course, everything you need to know about how to find your family history in newspapers. And I just want to thank everyone for the amazing response. It's really obvious that a comprehensive book on newspaper research was long overdue. And I had so much fun putting it together. I learned so much and found so many things for my own family in the process. And I've already started hearing from, of course, many folks out there who are finding gems already using the book. The book is now available at our website, genealogygems.com. And stay tuned, because very soon the ebook version will also be published. So we will have that for you as soon as we can get it done. Stay tuned for that. Make sure that you are on the Genealogy Gems e-newsletter list so that we can notify you of that, as well as share, all the video interviews and things that we were doing there at RootsTech. And, of course, you can sign up for the newsletter at genealogygems.com. There's a sign up for the newsletter button. I think it's over on the left-hand side. But click on that. You'll get a free ebook on search strategies as a thank you gift, and that'll keep you up to date on everything that we're doing here at Genealogy Gems. And then to wrap up my teaching schedule at RootsTech, I presented inspiring ways to capture the interest of the non-genealogist in your life. I love presenting that class at the end of a conference or a seminar like this because it's such an uplifting note to end on. People were stopping me in the halls. They were telling me about the first project that they had in mind they were going to go home and do, and they were just glowing with excitement. It was really lovely to see. So that was just a lot of fun. Busy. And then, of course, anytime I wasn't teaching, you could usually find me in the center of the expo hall in the media hub, conducting interviews there in the glass booth that I think I have affectionately come to know as the cone of silence. Remember that from Get Smart? Though it really wasn't silent in there. But the nice thing is that glass booth made it possible to to record interviews and kind of cut down on the intense noise that was going on in the expo hall and just kind of gave you a nice background ambiance for all those interviews. So, and boy, did we do a lot of interviews. I got video and audio interviews for you with Dennis Brimhall. He's the new CEO of Family Search International. We talked to Jay Verkler, the outgoing CEO. Of course, David Renscher, Family Search head genealogist. Got a chance to chat with the new president of APG, the Association of Professional Genealogists, Kenyatta Berry, and Dave Barney from Google. Yep, he's going to give us the inside scoop on the new metadata standards that they're working on specifically for genealogy websites. This is pretty incredible. A lot of major websites have come on board. This is a way for website owners to code their information behind the scenes so that when you do a search, Google understands that these results are coming from genealogy sites and they're able to deliver more prioritized information on genealogy websites. It's pretty great. And I know that any of you, particularly in the United Kingdom or Australia, will be very familiar with another gentleman that I sat down with to do an interview, Nick Barratt, from the UK and Australian versions of the hit TV series, Who Do You Think You Are? He flew in kind of last minute, it sounded like, to take in all the excitement at RootsTech. And I think you're going to see probably the only video interview that I'm aware of that he did, and that's going to be on our Genealogy Gems YouTube channel. So make sure, if you haven't visited our YouTube channel, go to youtube.com/genealogygems. Click the subscribe button, and then you'll get a quick notification when we do upload these new interviews, and that'll include the one with Nick Barratt as well. And we'll also be featuring the audio from his interview as well here on the podcast. He's so full of energy and enthusiasm for family history. It's absolutely contagious. It was just a ton of fun to talk with him. Oh my gosh, there's so much to tell you about RootsTech, but let's jump in first to some of the big announcements that, of course, tend to come out of conferences like this, and we will cover that here in the genealogy news. There were several. Now, one of the big players in British online records, Brightsolid, made a huge splash at RootsTech 2012, not only with its huge and colorful display at the front of the expo hall, but also by announcing while they were there that they have formally entered the U.S. genealogy market with the launch of a groundbreaking pay-as-you-go website. It is censusrecords.com. Now, I got a chance to sit down with Brightsolid CEO Chris Vanderkool, and you'll be hearing and seeing that interview very soon here on the podcast. And he was particularly excited to offer that pay-as-you-go option to U.S. Census records for Americans. So while that option is pretty common in the UK, U.S. genealogy websites, of course, tend to opt for the full-year subscription that automatically renews oftentimes. And I think the pay-as-you-go model has the opportunity to really open up online family history research to folks who maybe are just getting started and they aren't totally sure that how deep they want to go into this new hobby. And sometimes you just need a few specific records. So it's kind of nice that you can kind of go in there and pick up a couple of records that you need, pay as you go, rather than having to invest for an entire year subscription. Customers of the new site are going to be able to, of course, search all the U.S. Census records from 1790 to 1930, and it will also house the 1940 U.S. Census records when they're released in April of this year. And to help make the move into the U.S. market, Chris has hired, of course, the well-known genealogist Josh Taylor, and they were both at RootsTech donning their 1940s hats and suits. So, welcome to America, Brightsolid. And also making news was MyHeritage.com, which, as I mentioned, I think in the last episode, they've recently acquired WorldVitalRecords.com. And so now MyHeritage is another company splashing onto the U.S. scene. I spoke with the CEO, Gilad Japhet, and he told me that they have just opened a U.S. office in Provo, Utah. He's based in Israel, and he's the founder of the company, but now they are in Provo, and they'll be introducing some exciting new changes in the near future that are going to take advantage of the huge new record collection that, of course, they've acquired from World Vital Records and make it easier than ever to build your existing MyHeritage family tree. So U.S.-based Ancestry definitely has some new competition, and the expo hall was bursting with huge displays, not only from Ancestry, but Brightsolid and MyHeritage, and also Archives.com. Now, there is a U.S.-based company here in the Silicon Valley in California, and they have been ramping up, but kind of playing it pretty low-key up until now. As far as I know, this is one of the first conferences that I can recall seeing them with a booth in the exhibit hall. So they've sort of come out of the shadows, as well as the genealogy search engine Macavo. And I just had a chance to talk with their new head genealogist, Michael Leclerc. That is coming up in the very near future, that interview here on the podcast. And of course, RootsTech was first and foremost Family Search's big event. And during the conference, Family Search announced a mobile indexing app that's meant to expand the capabilities of volunteers to make the world's historic records searchable online. The mobile device app works on Apple iPads, iPhones, and Droid smartphones. So to download the free app, you just search for Family Search Indexing app in the Apple App Store or in the Droid Market Store online. And Family Search also announced the winners of the RootsTech Developer Challenge. Now, first place went to Jimmy Zimmerman for his Note Fuser. Now, I've mentioned Evernote here on the show before, and I've got some great new stuff coming for you in the Genealogy Gems premium membership area, coming down the road here in the next couple of months on Evernote, using it for genealogy. And I've taught course classes on Evernote. It's a terrific free program that allows you to take notes pretty much in any form, and you can share them amongst all your various computing devices. It really takes advantage of the cloud. Well, this Note Fuser connects your Evernote notes to Genie.com or to newfamilysearch.org person records. It also allows you to easily create Evernote-powered research logs and other notes with just one click. And you can watch a video demo of Note Fuser by the first place winner, Jimmy Zimmerman. It's at notefuser.herokuapp.com, and I'll have that in the show notes for you. Second place in the contest went to Brooke Schreier-Gans of LeafSeek. Now, LeafSeek helps you turn your genealogical or historical record collections into searchable online databases. LeafSeek includes features such as built-in geospatial searches, pop-up Google Maps, Beider-Morse phonetic matching, name synonyms, and language localization to help you turn your spreadsheets of names and dates into a full-featured genealogy search engine. And you can check that out at leafseek.com. And there was a tie for third place between the Brigham Young University Computer Science Department for the 20-Minute Genealogist and Ellie Rasmus for FaceTree. The 20-Minute Genealogist, it's a site that will visualize your family tree using new family search credentials. And you can see who in your tree needs work and instantly link to Family Search and Ancestry to search for missing information. You can sign up to be a beta tester at 20, and it's twenty.byu.edu. And FaceTree, the other third place winner, has been developed as a way of using genealogical data from GEDCOM files as context to improve the accuracy of face recognition. So some pretty cool projects. I'm going to try and get some more information. I didn't get much more on FaceTree and how to get a hold of them. If I find that, I will get that in the show notes for you. I'm really interested in facial recognition and that way of matching up images. Wouldn't that be great? But congratulations to all the winners. It's great to see that kind of innovation going on. And RootsTech was the place to do it. Well, I could go on forever about RootsTech, but we've got other things to do here in this episode. We're going to hear from Jim Tipton, the creator of the incredibly popular Find a Grave website. And of course, Sunny Morton's going to be back with another installment of Your Life and Times. And coming up next, most importantly, we are going to hear from you. We'll do that at the mailbox.
letter from my old hometown. One with some jokes from my old pal Jim Brown. Bring me a letter from that girl of mine, saying that she's longing for me all the time. Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
My first email here comes from longtime listener Pat. She says, once again, I find myself driving along, listening to you and mentally adding to-do items faster than the speed limit will allow. It's like having tea again with a childhood friend. Your comforting tone is oh so soothing at the end of the day for the drive home. So thank you for that, and thank you once more for covering one of my favorite topics, newspaper research for family history. However, darn you for getting me all fired up at the end of a tiring day. But there's nothing else I'd rather be fired up about. I thought you might enjoy a recent blog post. This blog is addressed to my siblings and mostly Irish family members that highlighted newspaper articles I found using Fulton postcards. It's a wonderful archive of old, mostly, New York State newspapers, which of course is lucky for Pat because she's in New York. I will have a link to Pat's blog post in the show notes. She says, I'm attaching the Lost Goose newspaper notice, which was a particular gem found in those old small town newspapers. And we certainly do have Fulton postcards listed in the New York section of the appendix in the new book because it is a terrific website. Pat says, these gems show why I can advocate for the importance of newspaper research. Your book is on pre-order and I can't wait. Keep up the good work and enjoy RootsTech. And this is so cute. Okay, so this little article, and I'll have the clip in the show notes for you. It says, lost, strayed, or stolen from the possession of Christy Fisher on the night of the 25th of December, 1861. One gray goose, in capital letters, whilst he was innocently and laboriously in search of gravel for the crop of said goose. Whoever will return this goose or give any information that will lead to the recovery of said goose shall be liberally rewarded. Christopher Fisher, January 15th, 1862. So if you've seen a goose run around, you know who to get a hold of. This is really cute. Thank you, Pat. I love newspaper gems. Oh, my gosh. And Tina in the UK, now she wrote in, she said, your new newspaper book, I wondered if the content might be solely to do with the U.S. newspapers, or do you cover other countries too? I'm interested as I haven't had a lot of luck. My searching technique must be wrong. Well, Tina, rest assured, the book is first and foremost a newspaper research process. Now, this applies to newspapers regardless of their location because they're all over the place. So we have to have a process to follow that covers all our bases and leads us to the end result, no matter where it is. It does, however, include a fairly extensive international newspaper appendix in the back. We've got a complete appendix for every state in the U.S. and then by country in the international section. Tons of UK resources. And of course, it's impossible to make it complete. However, it's going to give you some really great leads. And of course, that could provide you with a sense of what's out there and then other types of similar websites that you could look for. So while newspaper research starts online, oftentimes it will end offline because, of course, certainly by no means are all newspapers digitized. But knowing how to start online, how to follow the process, and to locate those records no matter where they are, that's the goal. Certainly the worksheets that you're going to find in the book that you can photocopy and use over and over again will be applicable to all newspaper research. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much for writing in and for listening to the show. And Sandy wrote, just got my signed copy today. Thanks, Lisa. I know I will get lots of gems. I foresee this being a well-used workbook. And Nancy wrote in, she says, I got my signed copy today in the mail. Well done. Lots of fantastic tips and references for all states. I'm reading it through. Thank you, Lisa, for a great book. And Brett Peterson, who was just teaching on newspapers at the Family History Expo in Mesa, Arizona. I just caught up with him again at RootsTech. He was recommending the book in his newspaper class. He says, I sure wish I'd had a book like this when I started researching newspapers. Me too, actually. And I got an audio note from a friend of ours who just received her newspaper book. Take a listen.
Hi Lisa, this is Maria Northcote from the Genie's Down Under podcast in Australia. As you know, I'm a long-time fan and listener of your Genealogy Gems podcast, and I just wanted to let you know that when I got home from work today, I had a nice surprise in my mailbox. It was your new book called Everything You Need to Know About How to Find Your Family History in Newspapers. There are so many things I love about this book, I don't really know where to start, but first of all, I really loved seeing your face peeking out above the open newspaper on the front cover. And speaking of the front cover, I love the old-fashioned newspapery type font. It really makes you think of old-time newspapers. And the whole book really was easy to read. There's lots of lovely white space that I like, and plenty of graphics to help make the information really interesting and accessible. And I think your book gives us plenty of ideas, even if we're not in the US. You've given us a special appendix with all sorts of resources to check out across the world. And there's also plenty of tools throughout the book, like newspapermap.com, that I think could be used in any country. And I love the way you dedicated the book to your listeners. That's a really nice touch, and it makes us feel quite special. So thank you. And I'm really looking forward to exploring all the website links you've included throughout the book. And I can't wait to tell my other Genie friends about the book and also to share it with my listeners on the Genies Down Under podcast. So all the best with your book from this Genie Down Under, Maria in Australia.
Thank you so much, Maria, and all of you for writing in. And I want to let all of you know we've had it available as a pre-order before we got the official shipment. And so those have all been shipped out, and we had that as an autographed copy. For the time being, I think I'm going to leave that on the website at least for another week or so, at least until I head to London. So if you want your copy and you'd like to have it signed by moi, I'd be happy to do so. So you just head to genealogygems.com and you can find the link there. And then certainly after we discontinue the signed copies, of course, you will always be able to get a hold of the book there at our website and in our store. Okay, let's see here. I have a question from Dave. And he says, it's funny. I feel like I can call you Lisa, although I have never met you in person. I just renewed my premium membership for the second year, so I've been following you for quite a while. I love your shows, Gems, Premium, and Family Tree Magazine. I listen regularly and always can't wait for the next issue to come out. On to my question. I was reviewing your hard drive organization videos. Fantastic, by the way. Thank you. Now, he's referring to, we have a 2-part hard drive organization video series as part of your premium membership. This is the process that I use, and it has worked for me. It's never failed me in about over 10 years, so I'm really glad that it's working for you as well. And Dave says, I noticed that you mentioned Springfield, Ohio as an ancestral home. I, too, have relatives there. I'm currently fascinated by my Civil War veteran ancestor, Samuel S. Cohen. He fought in the Ohio Volunteer 94th and was injured in Chickamauga. I can document fairly well the point where he entered the service to where and when he died. Although I do have some holes after he was injured, I had some great help from the Clark County Genealogical Society in obtaining some court records to move further back in the Cohen line. However, I'm stuck here. I was wondering where to locate possible obituaries for Springfield. What newspapers were commonly read there? I'm specifically looking for information from 1800 until 1865. I've exhausted help through the society, or I can't think of the correct questions to ask. It appears Samuel's father, David, was a blacksmith, and prior to the 1860s, I would think that would make him fairly important to the community. But I can find nothing mentioned in any newspapers about his death or other blacksmiths in the area. Any help or direction would be fabulous. Thanks again for all you do to feed mine and other addictions to family history. And he says, P.S. I've attended the Jerseyville, Illinois Victorian Days Festival and photographed the event. It's a wonderful Civil War era festival that has period fashion shows and actors along with a Civil War camp and battle reenactment. If you'd like to see the pictures, you can take a look at them over at his website. Just a fun distraction. And I will have a link because, Dave's a very talented photographer and really neat to see, oh my gosh, all the costumes and love these reenactment groups all over the country. If you'd like to take a look at that, we'll have a link for you in the show notes. But Dave, I'm really glad that you are enjoying, again, premium membership. And in my book, Everything You Need to Know About How to Find Your Family History in Newspapers, of course, it lays out a very comprehensive research strategy, which you could certainly use. And we've got a whole listing for websites in the U.S. section for Ohio in the back of the book. But to get you started, here's what I would recommend. Try searching Chronicling America, their website. They are not only continually adding free newspapers that are digitized, but what they are really doing is trying to collect basically a card catalog of all newspapers that were available and to have that information by time frame, by location. So here's what I would recommend. Check out a video that I have at my YouTube channel at youtube.com/genealogygems. The video is called Using Newspapers in Genealogy. And what you're going to see there, it's not fancy. I'm not talking my head off or anything, but what you're going to see there is a website resource that allows you to search for a location, as in Ohio, the area of Ohio that you were talking about, and then also by time frame. And down at the bottom in the left-hand corner of this map that you'll be using, you're going to see listings of any newspapers that Chronicling America has record of. This is kind of their listing for that location at that time frame. And you can click through. It will take you exactly to that listing in Chronicling America. Again, you may find digitized pages, but more likely you're going to find where are these newspapers held and how long do these span? What are all the details? This is a card catalog of newspapers, and I think that you're going to find, I saw at least 5 or 6 newspapers listed for that area at that time frame. So check that out, again, at my YouTube channel. Be sure and subscribe while you're there. It's free. And thank you so much for writing, and thank you for sharing the great photos. Really cool. And I have a grandma names follow-up. Remember we were talking about that my little grandson, Davy, is calling me Shasha. Oh, yes. And it has stuck. Let me tell you. I was just over there yesterday and he's like, Shasha's here. And pretty fun. Well, okay. So I got this email. This is from Allison. And she says, I saw this article in the Australian newspaper today and it reminded me of your stories about Davy. So I thought you may like to read it. I really enjoy listening to your podcasts on my morning walk. So keep them coming. Absolutely. I will keep them coming. And I am going to have a link. This article is great. Now, I was going to read it here on the show, but I realized I'm going to completely run out of time. We still have to get Jim on the show from Find a Grave. So I'm going to have a link for you in the show notes so you can check out this article. Let me just tell you, grandmas and grandpas out there, it's worth the read. Okay? I really enjoyed it. So thank you so much, Allison, for sharing that. And finally, Alan, he wrote in, he says, I very much enjoy your podcast. I wanted to share the name my granddaughter uses for me, one that I think any genealogist might love. We were Skyping the other day, and my son referred to me as Dad. Now, this was confusing to my granddaughter, so he explained that I was Old Dad, and that has been my name ever since. Thank you, Alan, Allison, all the rest of you for writing in. Always enjoy visiting with you here at the mailbox. Okay, coming up next, we're going to have Jim Tipton from a marvelous website, Find a Grave.
Bring me a letter from my proud old dad, who knows that we are winning, and I'll bet he's glad. But more than any other, a line from my old mother. Bring me a letter from my hometown.
This gem was suggested by a longtime listener, Kate Vaughn. And though my inbox is filling up more quickly these days, and I have been hitting the road more often, let me tell you, I really do read all your emails. I may or may not reply right away. We always pick the great gems and get them here on the show, but I love hearing from you. And of course, so many of the suggestions that you guys make are really the catalyst for what we cover here on the show. So if there's something you've got in mind, this is the way to do it. Just drop me a line at genealogygemspodcast@gmail.com. So Kate wrote in, she says, I don't recall you mentioning Find a Grave. I have found it very helpful. I think when people are buried in the same plot, there is a good chance, of course, that they're related. In my research, the Emery family from Maine and Ohio has been a challenge. This is one of these families who had many children. It was through this site that I've been able to sort out the Emery line. The only information I had was the census. I found a list of obits on genealogy trails that helped. On Find a Grave, I came across the same contributor, Rick Emery. He has posted numerous family members with links to their parents, siblings, spouses, and children. Many of the postings have an obit and some a bio. There are photos from the 19th century from some Emerys. In many Ancestry.com family trees, people have claimed this whole family with numerous mistakes. Also on MyHeritage, people have posted this Emery family again with many mistakes. I even joined the NEHGS, which is the New England Historical Genealogical Society, to sort out this family. The information on Find a Grave is the only place that has helped sort out who is who in this family. This is a large family who came to America in the late 1600s, if my sources are correct. Rick Emery deserves much credit for his newspaper obits and grave photos. Hope you and your family and Davy had a wonderful Christmas. Keep up the good work, Lisa. And again, this is from Kate Vaughn, and she gives an example of the Emerys. The Nathaniel Emery Memorial at Find a Grave is number 552854432. Well, we did have a wonderful Christmas. Thank you so much, Kate. And I was intrigued. Of course, now I've been looking at Find a Grave, have certainly used the site myself. I'm sure I must have mentioned it at some point on the show, but we have never talked to the founder of Find a Grave, Jim Tipton, and it seemed like it was about time, particularly with your great success there on the website. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Jim Tipton of Find a Grave. Are you looking for a virtual cemetery experience? Oh, come on, you know you are. Well, look no further than Find a Grave. It's the self-described virtual cemetery experience website. And here to tell us more about it is the living and breathing founder of Find a Grave, Jim Tipton. Welcome to the podcast, Jim.
Hi, good to be here.
Okay, Jim, let's just start with the big picture, because I know a lot of people listening have seen the website, but some people haven't. Tell us what a virtual cemetery experience looks like on Find a Grave.
Well, a virtual cemetery experience looks like a web page, really. And we're an enormous database of currently about 75 million burial locations. And we really kind of try to mimic a cemetery visit. I've tried to, over the years, allow, of course, have pictures of the graves. And then there's a feature where you can add flowers, a token with a note, like many people do when they visit their loved one's grave. We try to document the world's cemeteries, mostly in the U.S., but we're expanding rapidly.
And that was one of my questions I was going to ask was, are you expanding more so into international? I know that we have lots of listeners in Australia and the UK and Canada. Will they still find some items there on the website?
They will, just because of how it kind of developed. We're definitely, U.S. We have a lot more records for the U.S. now, and we are English only at the moment. But that includes many of the other countries you just mentioned. And so we've got a lot of Canadian people who are getting into it. Australians, definitely in the UK, we've got a huge number of cemeteries listed there too. The web kind of knows no borders. So we're open to every country in the world.
You bet. Now I know that genealogists tend to think of Find a Grave as a genealogy website. Do you think of it as a genealogy website, or is your audience much broader than that?
I don't really think of it as one. I know that it's a tremendous resource for genealogists, and many of our users are, of course, genealogists. But as it developed, as it evolved over the years, I did not come to it from a genealogist's point of view. But that's not to say that it's not like I said, a tremendous resource for genealogists. A cemetery is like a database of people who have lived and died. So it's terrific for genealogists. But no, we are not. I don't consider ourselves strictly a genealogy site. We've always said our main mission is to just, record the data that's out there. If it's helpful for genealogists, terrific. If it's helpful for someone, who's trying to piece together their past for whatever reason, terrific. Our main job, as we see it, is to document the headstones that are out there.
So that kind of makes me wonder, how did all this get started? I mean, did Jim Tipton wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I'd really like to put all the graves of the world on the website"?
No, not at all. Jim Tipton certainly didn't wake up and do that, because Jim Tipton is not a morning guy. He is an insomniac, a nerdy insomniac, who couldn't sleep. And in 1995, when the web was really in its infancy, I had this hobby of visiting famous graves like Marilyn Monroe, Lucille Ball, famous authors. I liked going to those graves and being within like 6 feet of, Karl Marx or these huge historic figures, and just knowing like, wow, that's where this person actually ended up. And I just thought that was a powerful feeling, for the same reason it's a powerful feeling to visit a loved one's grave, to actually be there and see that stone and see the name etched in stone. And I put my very few couple hundred listings that I had assembled online, and it took, again, this is way in the infancy of the web. It took just a few days before someone was like, "Well, you've got to add Elvis or whatever," and people started sending me more and more names, and it was all famous names in the beginning, and then they started sending me more and more obscure names, like, my aunt made the best pecan pie in all of Tennessee or something like that. She's famous or whatever, and I got sick of kind of having to tell people that her aunt really wasn't famous because she made good pumpkin pie or whatever, and so I just opened it up to anyone and built the tools for people to add the information, and that really opened the floodgates. And the entire site is just built by this army of 1 million registered users who are out there walking their local cemeteries and photographing them. And it's been this phenomenal evolution of I'm just trying to basically keep up with the information that flows in. And we're now adding names at a rate like quadruple the death rate in the U.S. We're adding 75,000 names a day or something like that, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, it sure is. Is this full-time work for you? Are you squeezing this in around a day job? What are you doing?
No. Initially, I was definitely, quote, squeezing it in around a day job. It was just something I kind of did as a hobby at night. But it maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I started tapering my hours off at my day job, which I was working at a cancer institute. And this has been kind of my full-time deal for a number of years now.
Wow, that's terrific. Now, before we kind of go and take a little virtual tour of the website, tell us any stories. Now, it's interesting that you came to this because you hadn't just a personal interest, hobby of looking into famous people. Did you ever run into famous people in cemeteries while you were looking at famous people? Any interesting stories there?
Yeah, I've never run into a famous person in a cemetery. I've run into other contributors from the site, which is always a pleasure, to be like, "Hey, we're here doing the same thing, and, are you..." I never, announce who I am, but you can kind of tell when someone's there, documenting the cemetery rather than visiting a loved one. You'd hate to, barge in on a funeral or someone who's there for personal reasons, but so that's always fun to kind of make that connection that, hey, we're both here kind of working on the same project. And I've heard from a number of, famous relatives over the years, from, people who have contacted me and said, we're happy that there's a memorial place for the fans to gather or whatever. And so that's encouraging.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, let's talk about this. Now, I'm looking at the website right now, and of course it says search 74 million grave records. So you've got a hefty lot here. When somebody first comes to the website, how do they get involved? What's the first thing you would recommend that they do to try to, let's say, find an ancestor?
Yeah, if you're just coming to the site to search, I like to point out that everything is absolutely free. We're not like one of those sites that tries to hook you in and then, get you online for some recurring monthly fee or anything like that. Everything is totally free. You can come to the site and search, and being a participant, which we certainly encourage, is absolutely free too. So you can come to the site, and in the right hand column is kind of the non-famous search, is what we've called it for years, for lack of a better term. But you can just go in there. You can go to our search form, and you can search our 74 million and counting names. And if you're looking for someone in specific, hopefully they'll come up, and that we'll already have them in our system. And hopefully we'll have a photograph too. We've got about 70 million photographs too. So seeing that headstone is an important experience. If it's someone who you were close to, obviously you probably would have visited if you're super close, but just seeing an ancestor's headstone, I think, is an important psychological connection or something like that. So hopefully we have a photo, and if we don't have a photo, you can request a photo, and in the email will be sent out to one of thousands of people who have volunteered to be photo volunteers. And sometimes within a day, they'll go out and visit the cemetery and take a photo, and you'll get an automated email back that says, "There's a photo ready for you to see now." And if you search for your relative and they weren't there, we invite you to add them. You sign, you register. We don't share your information or any of that stuff. We hate that as much as everyone does. And we've got forms where you can add your relative, and you can start uploading photos, adding flowers, and doing all of that.
Now, you mentioned signing in, and of course, you do have a membership element to the website, and again, it's free. Tell us again, what's the advantage of becoming a member of the site?
Well, really, we don't. If you just want to come and search the site, we're absolutely terrific. Come and search the site. We don't care if you're a member or not. We all have memberships everywhere, and it gets tedious to have memberships. When we ask you to register, it's when you want to add information to the site. So if you want to add a photo, or if you want to add a name or a cemetery or anything like that, we require that you register, just simply so we know who's adding what to our system. We don't want to have the Wild West where everyone is just coming and adding names and we have no idea who it is or whatever. So it's just a simple, one-step register. All we ask for is an if address and a password, and it's only to keep track of who's doing what in our system. And it helps us, if there's an error and we need to contact the person and find out what's going on, it allows us to keep our lines of communication open.
No, that's great. That's like a quality check, element side of things. And you really do kind of have an army of people who seem to be out there and as excited as you are about documenting these graves. And I even noticed there's a link to the top 50 contributors. You must really have some people who have been very dedicated and put up a lot of information.
We do. If you look at that list of the top 50, some people have, I think someone is approaching 1 million, maybe over 1 million.
Wow.
But there are, to even make it out of that list, you've got to be in the tens of thousands of names that you transcribed from cemeteries. So yeah, there are, the site is absolutely, the success of the site is completely owed to this army of contributors that are out there. Like I said, we're just about to hit our 1,000th contributor here in the next week or so. So there's a huge number of people who are out there doing this, and I think for many of us, prior to the web coming along, we kind of felt like the black sheep of the family for having this. It can seem like this morbid hobby. It isn't really. Of course, you're not there thinking about death or anything like that. You're trying to preserve the lives of the people, not their death.
Yeah.
And so I think the web and Find a Grave itself has kind of helped these people kind of come out of the woodwork, and this community has emerged. And it's been terrific to kind of watch it unfold over the years.
Well, it's really just another element of history, right? I mean, it's really, these are historians, and these are people who are trying, and preservationists, it seems like.
Exactly, yeah. that's how we picture it too. We understand that, of course, some people are going to see a cemetery or a headstone and think creepy or weird or something like that. But if you're out there enough, the creepiness or the weirdness fades away quickly. And I think a lot of us kind of understand that it might seem odd at first blush or whatever. And in fact, we have a lot of people who find us that they'll be Googling someone and then they'll see, find a grave, and they're like, what is this? And it seems odd to them. And then they'll say, oh, I clicked on it because it seemed odd. And 3 hours later, I've been finding all my ancestors and a few famous names, and I even signed up and I've added my aunt or whatever. And so, we're okay with the oddness that we get characterized as.
And the addiction that you become, correct?
And the what?
The addiction that you become.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely an addict thing. There's a lot of people who are on there a lot.
Yeah. Now, I'm wondering, because I think you kind of touched on this, but let's go back, because I think one of the questions that people will have is, let's say that there's just one particular gravesite I would love to have a photo of, I'd like to kind of have confirmation of, and I don't live anywhere near it. Is there a way for people to put a request so that some of these amazing volunteers, if they happen to be in that area, would be able to take a picture of it for us?
There is, and it's one of the parts of the site that I'm most proud of, and that's most successful. It's got over an 80% success rate. So the way it works is, say you find your long lost aunt or something like that, and you're in California and she's in Florida. There's a button on her memorial that says request a photo. I mean, first of all, we hope we already have a photo, because we've got a huge number of photos. So it might already be there and we might just find it, and that's the best scenario. But you click on a button that says request a photo, and we've got people all over the country, and we're starting to get people all over the world. An email goes out who have told us where they live, and an email goes out to the 10 closest people, and hopefully one of them hops on there and says, I'll take that photo. You can claim the photo, and you've got 10 days to go out, and or maybe it's 15, I don't know. But you've got a window of time where you can go out and photograph the grave, and you come and you add it, and when you add it to the memorial, you, as the requester, would get an email that says, success. Your long lost aunt her headstone has been found and photographed, and here's a link to the memorial. And it works. And it works because we have the number of contributors we have. If we just had one person in each state or something like that, it absolutely would not work. But as it is, one of the complaints of the system is that people are saying, these are being fulfilled too fast. I can't go out and volunteer. I can't volunteer fast enough to help someone else make these family connections. And we say, terrific. I'm sorry that you can't get out there before someone else can, but we see that as like a huge sign that the system is working. And it's great, and it's really a great experience to do it and to see it work and to see the photo come back full circle. And like I said earlier, it sometimes happens sometimes within hours. Usually it takes a number of days, a week or so, or something that's reasonable. And in the winter, of course, sometimes it takes longer because headstones are buried under snow. But it's been a great part of the site. I'm happy.
Well, and it's more valuable than ever because of the recent kind of closing down of the Random Acts of Genealogical Kindness website, where people would often put those kinds of requests, and they're no longer in operation. So when you're looking for a tombstone, a gravesite, wow, it really seems like Find a Grave is a place to be, because then also when it gets found, it's shared with everybody. I think that's really the power of what you're doing here, is that it's available to everybody. Who knows if down the road somebody else is going to come along and want the same exact information. And when it's posted this way, it's available to everybody. Yeah,
and that's really been our mission the whole time. When you're out there in a cemetery by yourself, walking through graves of rows and rows of graves, and it's 90 degrees or whatever, and you're taking photos, and in the old days you're developing the photos and scanning them or whatever. Those are times of the past. You wonder, like, why am I doing this or something like that? But when working with Find a Grave long enough, you start to hear the success stories. And in fact, we have little success stories area where we share some of these. But you do start to see the fruits of your efforts. People saying, "Oh, I found my old Army buddy who died next to me in Vietnam or something, and now I know where he is, and I can visit him or make a virtual visit on the website." So to hear those success stories really feeds the it really motivates people to continue to do it. And you're right, you never know when it's going to help someone. It could be 5 years down the road. It could be, we hope, 50 years down the road or something like that. But the information is valuable, and we hope that getting it out there for everyone to be able to search, is helpful to people. And it is.
Well, and particularly in these days when we're finding people are sharing their online family trees, which is terrific, and yet the flip side of that, of course, is that you can find a lot of mistaken information. And this is one place where you could go, and if you see the tombstone and there's the death date, that one kind of trumps this one that was randomly found on somebody's family tree. That's a really great resource.
Yeah, and that's what tombstones occasionally have mistakes,
sure,
which we run across. But in general, yeah, it's a huge confirmation. More so than seeing, like you said, someone who's very distantly related listed the death date as this or that or whatever. Seeing it etched into stone is like a pretty permanent, confirmation, a pretty good source.
Yeah,
and that's why we're out there doing it.
Well, now you mentioned that, this isn't primarily, in your mind at least, it didn't start out as a genealogy site. Is family history something that you have spent time on and that you've researched your own, or have you been just super busy with Find a Grave?
I don't know my own family history too far back. I know it a little bit, and I've talked with my aunt, who's kind of the keeper of the family records. Most families have, I think. And probably most of your listeners are that person. So no, personally myself, I have not. I haven't done my own genealogy too far back. It's probably something I'll do when I have time to, maybe free time to sit down and do that, because I don't have much of that at the moment because I'm fairly busy with the site. But it's something I'd love to do, and I think it's an interesting hobby, and for people who, like me, kind of like the thrill of the hunt and researching and digging back and finding that information, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you have kids, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, for them, it's always kind of, as they get older, you find yourself more and more wanting to make sure they know. How do you explain to them what Daddy does for a living?
Well, they know. One of them is quite a bit older and can totally understand. The other one is 4 years old, and he's just grown up. He knows what Daddy does. He knows Find a Grave. He knows the bumper stickers he loves sticking onto everything in the house, and he he's a frequent partner when we go out into the cemeteries, and he likes it, and he loves finding specific names or little pictures on headstones, and he loves writing flower pots that have been tipped over or whatever, and picking them up and stuff. So it's a family affair, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
My wife has certainly been very tolerant of any sort of family trip. We'll end up spending a day or two in some cemetery, which is not everyone's idea of a fun vacation, but she's gotten into it too, so that's been fun.
Oh, that's cool. Well, what's in the future for you and for Find a Grave?
Well, we just hope to keep growing at the rate we're going. I mentioned earlier we're adding names in the U.S. at least at far faster than people are dying. So we hope to eventually catalog the entire U.S. Cemetery population and then beyond. We hope that the international cemeteries start to pick up too, and that we end up expanding all across the world, because we think it's an important resource, and we love that it's available for free. I've always been adamant that it stays free, and it's really actually free. It's not some carrot being dangled in front of people, like many of the sites do. And yeah, so we really hope to just kind of keep on the same trajectory we are. We're adding, thousands of people every every week, and tens of thousands of new names to the database every day. While we've been talking, we've added, not me, but contributors out there have added 500 photos and 500 new names, and 15 new people have signed up. So we really just hope to see this growth continue and just heading down the same path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can see from your website that you're just getting millions of page views every day. So those of you listening, you're missing out if you're not there, because there's a lot going on there and a lot of terrific information. Jim, thank you so much for taking us on a tour of Find a Grave. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is Sunny McClellan Morton. Today, I'm going to wrap up my series on personal history for genealogists with a few thoughts about how we find meaning in memories, our own or someone else's. I have a tendency myself to take life a bit too seriously. It used to be really bad. I got way too intense about things. I couldn't take a joke at my own expense or see the humor in everyday ironies. One day my mom told me a story about herself. When she was younger, she was the same way. One day she lost her temper over a situation that wasn't worth it. Her dad, whom I recall as a rough and tumble guy, fixed her with a look, and she thought she had it coming. But instead of a beating, she got one of the best pieces of advice ever. "Janie," he said, that was her middle name, and now it's also mine. "Janie, you've got to stop taking yourself so damn seriously." Now, my mom's not a person to cuss, even mildly, so it was a bit jarring when she told me this story. But you'd better believe I have remembered it all these years. Whenever life is so not funny, I hear a little voice in my head saying, "Janie, don't take yourself so damn seriously." I've been surprised at the things that can be funny, even in the gravest of moments. Recently I passed this same story on to my own son, who is a bit intense himself. He's 7, and his mom isn't one to cuss, even mildly, so the story got his attention too. Even though he'd just lost his temper over someone teasing him, he laughed and untensed his shoulders, and made peace with the world. Other people's stories teach us how to live, especially the stories of other people like us. Our stories connect us to each other. That story connected my grandfather to my son who has never met him but is named after him. So what if there's no obvious meaning attached to a personal or family memory, no great one-liner with a mild cuss word in it? We find or create it, often as we tell or write it. It's kind of like completing a dot-to-dot puzzle, connecting the past and the present, then seeing the meaning they create when they're linked. That's what we do, we family historians. We link to the past in ways that enrich the present and the future. So next time you stumble into a personal or family memory, say to yourself, so what? Why do I care about this memory? Why do I think others may care about it? Your instincts may give you a surprisingly insightful answer. Record that answer along with the memory, and presto, that memory now has a meaning. Here's wishing you success and enjoyment as you tell your stories, your own and your family's, in 2012 and beyond. I'm Sunny McClellan Morton, author of My Life and Times, a guided journal for collecting your stories from Family Tree Books. I help people save their lives, one story at a time. Find me at www.sunnymorton.com or my life history writing blog at www.yourlifeinfiveminutes.com.
Thanks so much for joining me for this Genealogy Gems podcast episode number 126. Another one has flown by. It's always fun to talk to you, to share my experiences at RootsTech, and would love to share an experience with you of one of the listeners of this podcast at RootsTech. Carol Genung won the registration that we gave away for the RootsTech conference, and she sat down with me for a video interview at the RootsTech Media Hub, and you will find that at the Genealogy Gems YouTube channel. I'll also put a copy of it in the show notes. Wonderful meeting Carol in person. Oh, I wish I could just sit down with each and every one of you and do that. Sit down and chat and see what you're doing. She certainly was perfect for that event because in her day job, she's a techie. She's a programmer, and she absolutely knew what these folks were talking about. And, of course, she's an avid genealogist, so it all came together perfectly. Wonderful to talk with her. Congratulations again, Carol. It was great to see you. And I look forward to meeting many more of you as I hit the road this year. It's going to be a busy 2012. But if I don't get to see you in person, I am so glad that you are visiting here with me on the podcast. Thanks so much for listening, friend. I'll talk to you soon.